Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Lately, I've been stressing. And it's not because I've just been working and uploading, yada yada, way too much video content. You guys know that's not true because I've been severely slacking. But because I feel like a lot of the projects I've been talking about as of late have been kind of heavy for me. First, I covered the project that is likely to be my album of the year, and it took me months to figure out exactly what to say about the project. Secondly, I was very nervous about putting up a semi-positive review for an artist that I've been historically pretty negative toward in the past. Thirdly, I had the review of Unleashed with Naughty Step, which, bless his heart, but honestly I was kind of intimidated that we shared such differing opinions on that project. And then of course I covered Illenium's newest LP, which definitely took a mental toll on me, with me having a lot of flashbacks throughout the process of my fairly positive review of Awake that got a ton of negative backlash. Some of you may have seen on Twitter that over the course of 2019 so far, I have let 128 albums and EPs stack up in my essentially to review list. So yeah, I am definitely stressing a bit, which is why, for my own sanity, I thought it would be a good idea to cover a pretty low stakes project, and not low stakes in the sense that I think this project is bad by any stretch. In fact, it's quite the contrary, but rather a project that wasn't particularly requested a ton, a project by an artist who I haven't had historically controversial opinions on, a project that I can pretty much just talk lightly about and then encourage you guys to listen to it for yourselves. And that project is the debut EP from Grant, Wishes. Grant is an American DJ and producer who got his start on, of course, Monstercat in early 2014. At that point, he was releasing under the moniker Grant Bowtie and was the brains behind a number of Monstercat's first ever future bass releases. In fact, I'm pretty certain Grant Bowtie's debut Monstercat single, Reach, was the first future bass single that the label released. That song was also a part of Monstercat's 17th regular compilation Ascension, which is my favorite Monstercat compilation of all time. I've noted this before, so obviously I have some fond memories of the song, but I also just have fond memories of the Grant Bowtie project because even following that point, he just continued to put out refreshing, interesting music. Songs like High Tide, Cloud 9, and Clockwork, songs that still very much hold up today. Though his releases were extremely infrequent, every time he did put out a song, it was like a huge treat, and he quickly became one of my favorite artists on the label. Grant Bowtie went off the map for a little while and returned in late 2016 with the song Wake Up. Some of you might remember that was my outro song on YouTube for quite a while, though I don't like it nearly as much nowadays as I did back when it released, simply because I had to hear it so many times as my outro song. It's still a really cool tune. When the song released, I started to appreciate Grant for stepping outside of his comfort zone and blending his kind of wacky sound design with more pop elements. And from that point forward, he just kept impressing me more and more with every passing release, crafting these beautiful, unique songs using these sounds that have never graced my ears before. While a lot of EDM artists in this decade find one, unique lead and then use it in every single song as their kind of signature style, Grant did that on every single he released. Not to mention, he also very quickly got better at doing pop vocal chops than pretty much everyone else. Considering Grant and myself went to school for the same 4 years and both studied music, it was very impressive for me to see all the crazy groundbreaking stuff he was doing while studying. Since he started the Grant project, I don't think he's put out a single bad song. The one that he did with Mern, Fault, is probably the closest he's come for me, though I think it's more mediocre than it is particularly bad. I think he did the trap style much better on his solo single, The Edge. I also don't think I liked Starship nearly as much as everyone else, but I will admit it is a very good song. Grant quickly rose through the ranks and became, I'd say, my favorite artist on Monstercat. One thing though that I never asked for or really even thought about was Grant doing an EP or an album. I mean, personally, I was completely content with his singles. Maybe it's because so many of his releases were so spread apart that I didn't come to expect we'd ever get a big project that wasn't a single every few months. So of course, when Grant announced that he had an EP coming, I was, I guess, a little bit confused, but also excited. It was highly unlikely that I was going to end up disliking this project because half of the songs on the project had already been released, and I already kind of gave my opinions about those and greatly enjoyed the songs. Plus, I feel like you could take any number of Grant songs and stick them together on a project and they'd sound cohesive enough to make an album or an EP. But obviously there must have been something special about these 4 tracks particularly for them to make up Grant's first ever album or EP. Admittedly, I think he did a good job putting these 4 songs particularly together. And not because I think these 4 songs are just so tightly knit, they were like destined to be together or anything like that. Rather, I think this EP works because while it's only 4 tracks and 14 minutes long, it showcases 4 very different sides of Grant's skill set pretty well. If you were to kind of squint at this project, you could pretty much put every song under the umbrella future bass term, but in my opinion, that would really be doing the EP a disservice because really all 4 of these songs have their own distinct style. We've also got 4 distinct singers providing vocals across this project, which is pretty unusual, considering for a long time Jessie Mason was the only person Grant was working with. Of course, we've got Jessie Mason herself appearing on this project under the Juno moniker with their umpteenth song together, Color. McCall makes an appearance for her second song with Grant, Wishes. Run features on this project for her and Grant's first collaboration, Contagious. And then on the EP's closer, Where Will We Go, Grant actually provides the lead vocals himself for the first time. And surprisingly, he sounds like Bon Iver. Not a discount Bon Iver, just Bon Iver. That aside though, I think the central theme of this EP, more than it's like a cohesive story or anything like that, is Grant trying to kind of display his wide range of abilities, which honestly is pretty much what I would have wanted from a Grant project anyway. I mean, I guess it could have been a little bit longer, but for the most part, I'd say that my wishes were granted. Oh god. On the real though, I do think these 4 songs in particular display his skill set really well. The Wishes EP starts off with the song Contagious. More or less, I think the song's purpose is to show that Grant can kind of cross over into the melodic dubstep, melodic bass scene. Of course, you've got Run doing vocals on this song, who is going to be an instantly recognizable name to fans of Illenium and Seven Lions through her collaborations with them. And even though I'd say this song does fall more under the future bass subset than anything else, I think he is going for a little bit of like melodic dubstep influence in this song. I mean, beyond just the vocals, there's the more standard ABAB melodic dubstep formula of the song. The lead in Contagious reminds me a lot of the one in Castaway, which was a single he released a few months before this EP came out, but it's used in a much different context. Like, you can listen to Castaway and kind of feel that upbeat future bassness per se, whereas on this song it feels a little bit more, I guess, brooding. It feels like a melodic dubstep song to me. Then secondly, you've got Color with Juno, which is pretty much a 180 from Contagious. I already talked about this one at length in my last Monstercat Instincts Top 5 video, but I think in the context of this review, it's important to note that this song has a very distinct vibe from the rest of the EP. There is no song on this project nearly as dancey or as groovy. I'd say this is Grant's most EDM sounding song yet, and that's probably because I'm pretty sure it's the only one with a 4 on the floor beat. Also has an extremely rich instrumental palette that I don't think we've seen in a Grant song before this one. More, how you say, real instruments in this song. You can very distinctly hear an electric guitar, rhythm guitar kind of playing in the background. There's a sax solo toward the end of the song, and I'm pretty sure there is a legitimate bass guitar used throughout the song as well. In the greater purpose of the EP, I think this song serves to showcase Grant's ability to work fluidly with other musicians. I guess beyond what I already said about it being Grant's, danciest, grooviest track yet, the third track on the EP, the title track of the EP, Wishes, is one that I didn't necessarily love at first, and I didn't really totally get the hype behind it, but after listening to it more and more and familiarizing myself with the song, I do love it quite a bit. It gives me that same vibe as some of Grant's more emotional works like Constellations and Starship. A good chunk of the song is just this really pretty ballad, with McCall singing in great detail, I might add, about a relationship with a significant other. To me, the song kind of feels like it's about being a person who feels like they really can't fit in, but then just finding that one special person who you just feel at home with. The song builds up for quite a long time, which I'd say kind of bugged me on my first couple listens, which it really shouldn't have, considering Porter Robinson's Sea of Voices is one of my all-time favorites. But I think the thing about the song that initially bugged me so much is that it doesn't have this huge drop that pays off after all the build-up. It's kind of slow-paced even after it gets to the climax of the song. But I honestly kind of grew to love that aspect of the song. I just take it to be as more of a ballad the entire way through than a ballad with a crazy Grant-style drop. Although the sound design in the drop, I'd say, is pretty incredible. Grant using one of his, signature kind of glassy leads with these kind of weird and unexpected sounds playing in the background, which, you've come to expect obviously from songs like Constellations. But yeah, more than anything, I'd just say it's a really pretty song, certainly drives a sense of nostalgia in me, and I'd say this song's purpose on the EP is kind of to show off that more emotional, ballad-like side of Grant's sound. And then closing this EP out, we've got the song that I mentioned Grant does his own vocals in, Where Will We Go? Unlike the rest of the songs in this EP, I actually think Where Will We Go is connected to another song on this project, and that's the title track. Lyrically deals with some very similar themes about loneliness and isolation, but then being able to find peace with a significant other. Also gonna note that Grant provided the background vocals for Wishes, so the pairing of these two songs together kind of makes sense. Although sonically, this song is very, very different from Wishes, don't get me wrong. The song is much more downbeat, at least at the start, with Grant being very honest and open about his life. His voice pairs very nicely with these gentle plucks in the background. I assume it's some kind of guitar that's been edited to oblivion. And even when a beat finally comes in on this song, it's still pretty gentle, still pretty relaxing. The song eventually does kind of pick up pace and dive headfirst into this, I'd say, Porter Robinson influence section, where it's not quite a drop. I wouldn't really call it a drop in any capacity, but it's this big emotional climax of the song that honestly makes me want a lot more. I would have really liked it if it had gone into a big kind of drop section, but I'm fine with it, I guess. But that does bring me to another interesting thought I had about this EP, and that's that I don't necessarily think the track order is all that great here. Obviously, not the most important thing about the EP. I think the key element here is that we're getting 4 distinct sides of Grant's music, but I think it's an interesting thing that should be pointed out. Personally, I think the best way to listen to this EP is in alphabetical order, which would be Color, Contagious, Wishes, and Where Will We Go. You start off with the fun and dancey track, you get into a new single after that. Where Will We Go seems much more of an interlude to me than a closer, especially because it has this big build-up that doesn't really go anywhere after it. And then Wishes feels like it would be a good closer to follow that because it does have a really long build and a pretty nice payoff too. Though I think the track order is fine, it doesn't absolutely ruin the project for me or anything. I think Where Will We Go makes almost as good of a closer as it does an interlude in the way that I listen to it. Anyway, like I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't an extremely high stakes review. I don't want to stress myself out going way too in depth, but I did want to explain how, this is a good project, why this is a great collection of Grant's different abilities that make up a really solid debut project that I would highly suggest checking out, especially if you're a future bass fan that's just tired of the norm and wants to get something that's a little bit more different, a little bit more experimental. I am going to grant the Wishes EP a strong 8 to a light 8.5 out of 10. As always, if you haven't listened to this project yet, I have the Spotify link down in the description below. If you have listened to it, let me know what you think down in the comment section, and if you like this video, make sure to leave me a like, and probably subscribe while you're at it. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes, and I'll see you guys soon for a very special week next week. Peace.